Okay, so we've been covering ways in which you can create demand within your business or products or services specific to what you want to distribute out there. And we've been looking at, buyer perception, what it is that we can see our buyers want and figuring out alternatives or substitutes to what they could potentially buy from us. We've also talked about creating or identifying functional reasons why they would buy, whether you need to lean into that functional element or whether you need to lean into the emotional element or the emotional things that you could tether to potentially a functional product or vice versa, right? So we looked at those different examples and I gave you an example with my business specifically, my private equity one, and the way we raise capital. And we looked at ways in which we could target unexplored customers through tapping into the self-directed IRA market and other ways, including, but not limited to, looking at the cryptocurrency markets and finding out a way in which we could tap into that market, which we had no interest at the time in looking at traditional investments or traditional asset classes. So we've covered that. I want to now talk or lead into how you're going to make your decision between whether or not you're going to sell a product or create a product that you're going to sell within your own business, or whether you're going to choose to sell someone else's product. It's not as simple as it sounds, like it's just either yours or someone else's, because you've got to think also about the fact that you may be in a business that already has a good market or it has a good standing, but you may not have the resources or want to take the time to create or manufacture a different product or service, and then also have a way to distribute it. You may actually just want to partner with someone else to take on what they have and shift it through your predefined pipeline. So bear that in mind. Because I'm going to give you a quick example, and it's not going to be USPI. This is going to be my dad's company. My dad's company, we have a auto body from as long as I can remember. We've always been in the car business where he's had a mechanics workshop. It started off like that. And it's an auto body company. And what is an auto body company? It's a hybrid business, right? So remember when we covered types of businesses? Like a restaurant, an auto body has the service element, right? The advice and guidance that they give you about your car, and of course the meet and greet. So that would be the service. The service side of it. Then you also have the manufacturing side. And then you have the merchandising side. Just call it merch so I can. And then you've got all of these elements here that sort of feed into the hybrid side, because you're selling other aftermarket, parts for cars. You're selling parts for cars that exist that people need to have their cars fixed. You've got the manufacturing side where you're putting things together. You're creating things to have happen. The service side, of course, we just covered. So that's the auto body workshop. But so just to take you back. So what my dad used to do, or the company, he has a couple of brothers that work with him. So it's 3 brothers in total. And what they did was they had this shop, and after a while of just going through manufacturing and merchandising in terms of just doing their usual day job, they started to upgrade cars. They started to soup up vehicles. This is around, if you can remember, go back as far back as the first Fast and Furious movie, when people started wanting the glowing lights that went underneath cars and the spinning rims on wheels, and like the race seats inside, the bucket seats inside their cars. And these like average Fiat Puntos, there's tiny little cars that they're like souping up to go really fast. So we started getting involved with that space, but under a slightly different offshoot of a brand called Tuning Works, with an E, spelled with an E. And that was this sort of performance side of that business. And what we did was we upgraded cars so that they could go on the racetrack, and they had all these race days around the UK. And what happened was we started to become a little bit well known amongst that racing community, amongst the community within the UK in terms of people who wanted their cars modified. And so we started getting asked a lot of questions about, what can I do to my car? What can I do to this? How can I make the engine faster? What can I do with this and that? So what we did was we were looking for a way in which we could distribute something across the UK. So was it going to be, should we manufacture wiper blades? I mean, these were the discussions, Shall we make like exhausts, like an aftermarket exhaust pipe? we just decided that would be too much work. We'd have to have it designed. We'd have to have it created. We'd have to get some prototypes. We'd have to prepay to have these things built. So we decided we didn't want to actually make anything. But what we did start doing was looking for something that we could distribute. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we did. We chose someone else's product to sell. But the deal, the structure, the scalability, and the distribution had to be right. So remember that? Let's just use this. So as far as the deal was concerned, this was a company called APR Tuning, I believe. They should still be called that. I think I checked them a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if we still have the master agents or the master license for it, for distributing it in the UK, but back then we did. So we had the deal. We had this master license for APR Tuning. What APR Tuning did was they would remap cars. It was simply, you'd pull your laptop out, plug it into the car's computer, the black box of the computer within the car, and you could literally press a couple of buttons and then it would go faster. That's what it was. And you could set these trials up with people, and suddenly they'd have like an extra 20 brake horsepower for a week. And after a week, once they got used to it, it would go back down to normal. And of course, they'd come buy it. So that was the tuning package that we could sell. And what we had was this license where we were the only distributors in the UK that could do it. So we would go out to all the other performance, auto shops and just generally other people who were enthusiasts with cars, and they could actually sell it for us. So we had this idea now. So the deal was there. The structure was there because it could be easily deployed very quickly. So I'll just put here, remapping. The deal was there. We knew how much money we could be made. So the structure, and we would make a lot of money. So if it's a $500 equivalent of a remap, we'd be making $400 of it. The main company would be making 100. So let's say we had a really good percentage commissions. The structure of it in regards to how it was deployed was very simple. It was understandably simple because it's just literally plugging and playing, right? So as soon as we got another distributor on board, or if we got someone else to sell it, it was a simple matter of them going through some online training. We'd have a CD that back then it wasn't online training. You had the old dial-ups and stuff, but you could put a CD in your laptop or computer and figure out and go through the training course as to how to actually execute this remapping. So the structure was there in terms of how we could do it. Scalability was there because there was a scaling market. There's a lot of people out there who wanted to soup up their cars, and we now had this very quickly and easily deployed, piece of software that could make their cars faster. So structure was there, scalability was there, and as far as distribution was concerned, well, there's auto body shops everywhere. And so as these movies were coming out and the Fast and Furious scene was picking up in the UK and everyone wanted to do something to their car, at least something just to give it a little bit of an edge, we knew that we could have a way to distribute because everyone essentially who was in the car business could take on APR tuning. Now we had other competitors to work with, and that's why we're going to go into making the decision, how we made the decision between either creating our own product or service to sell or choosing someone else's, because the next section is going to be two other diagrams that I've actually pulled from university. Now, I promise you I wasn't going to ever fill this thing with fluff. It was going to be real world examples, things that I'm familiar and personal with. Now, if you go back to one of the first modules there where I talked about the Boston matrix, right? Do you remember that? That was the first one. Boston, I should write this here. The Boston matrix, very simply, it's basically deciding whether or not you're going to sell or work or put effort into a product or service that has high market share and low market growth, or vice versa. It was very simple. It was a very simple way of choosing without emotion what you should basically be focusing on. There's compartmentalizing everything within the business that you have or a business that you're about to get involved with or product ideas that you have, and being able to see what is what and where you should be focusing your attention. So that was Boston Matrix. And I'm going to put this 2 because I'm going to give you a 1 here. The third one, which we're about to get into, which is the barriers to entry into a market. It's barriers to entry. Barriers to entry. That's the next diagram we're going to look at. Super important. It's whether or not you want to enter a market that has a lot of barriers. It's going to be resisting your involvement, or if you're in a market, what are the barriers to entry to stop other people quickly coming in to become your new competitors? So barriers to entry is super important, really important for your distributors. They're going to be asking you that a lot. What's the unique selling point? Really what they're asking is, who can copy us? Okay. So that's the third diagram. The fourth diagram is the Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces, covering macro, micro factors that are essentially threats to your business. So once you're in position, your distribution channel's working, you've got people selling for you, what are the threats that you're going to face? What's going to basically cause your distributors or your customers or your salespeople to come back to you and say, oh, but they're outpricing us. Oh, but there's this market, there's the macro markets are doing this, or the government's doing this, or economically this is happening and this is a reason, or there's new legislation coming into play and it's stopping us. We're going to quickly evaluate how you can choose. And really, this is not specifically what my dad and I and my uncles did to choose whether or not we're going to go with API. It was kind of more of a gut feeling, but that was way back then. Now, if I'm looking at anything, I actually have a plan, and it's much better to have a step-by-step, play-by-play to make a decision like that. And of course, number one here was pool your resources. These were the 4 things that I took away from my college days, my university days. That was it. They could have taken 4 days to go through this with me. And that's because that's all I remember after 10, 15 years. It's pooling your resources in terms of how you can essentially tap into other people to get answers that you need, right? So if you have a question, instead of Googling it, researching it, trying to find out the answer, truth is, ask. Chances are the answer's in someone else's head, and they're probably going to be pretty willing to give it to you. 9 times out of 10, that's the case. You just simply have to look for a place to ask a question, and you'll get the answer. And this is really relevant in business, because the example that was given to me when it comes to pooling resources is, look, you're going to be doing that throughout your life anyway. When you start in business, you're going to be calling an accountant. Yes, you understand accounts, but you're going to be calling an accountant to do your accounts, right? You're going to be using lawyers to do your legal stuff. You're going to have salespeople to sell your stuff. You're going to have marketing people to market for you. You're going to have the people that make the stuff that you're manufacturing. You're not going to be doing it yourself for the most part. So learning how to pool your resources, or understanding that that's going to be the backbone to your business, is really what it is. And if you think about this, pooling resources, looking at the Boston Matrix, your barriers to entry, and looking at the threats to your business, this all sits here in DSSD, your deal, your structure, your scalability, and your distribution. It's super, super, super relevant, especially when we're talking about the use of a distribution network to sell for you, raise capital for you, whatever you're using these other people to do. So that's important. So I'll see you in the next section, and we're going to be talking about the barriers to entry.